The morning was quiet, the kind of quiet that feels heavier than silence. The single dad stirred awake before the sun, as he always did. His apartment smelled faintly of last night's dinner, and the faint trace of coffee left in the mug on the kitchen counter. His body ached in ways that reminded him he wasn't as young as he used to be. The bed beside him was empty, and the little footsteps of his daughter could already be heard somewhere in the apartment, soft and light but persistent, like a small drumbeat reminding him of the world outside his own tired thoughts. He moved slowly, letting the cool air hit his face, and rubbed his eyes. His daughter's laughter floated through the hallway as she played quietly by herself, her small hands busy with blocks scattered across the floor. Even though she was only 7, she had an energy that seemed endless, bouncing from one corner to the next, creating little worlds out of toys and imagination. And yet that very energy made him realize something that hurt quietly in his chest. He hadn't been a part of these little worlds for a long time. He was always busy, always thinking about bills, work, and responsibilities. Leaving only scraps of himself for her, he made his way to the kitchen, the wooden floor cold beneath his bare feet. He brewed the coffee, the aroma filling the small space, and for a moment he felt the comfort of routine. But comfort was a thin veil over a deeper loneliness. He watched as she carefully arranged her breakfast, humming softly, and it struck him how small. Simple things like this could go unnoticed in the rush of life. He realized that he had been noticing less and less about her, and that thought sank in with a heavy weight. She turned to him suddenly, eyes wide, with a mixture of mischief and hope. "Can you spend the day with me today?" she asked. Her voice was soft, almost shy, yet determined. She tilted her head the way she always did when she wanted something deeply. He froze, his hand halfway to pouring the coffee, and for a moment, time seemed to pause. He had never thought much about spending a full day just with her. He was always so focused on making sure there was food on the table, bills paid, and her safe, that the idea of a day just for her had never occurred to him. "I can't today," he replied instinctively, shaking his head. He could feel the disappointment in her eyes immediately. She had hoped for a simple yes, but his life was a tangle of obligations, each pulling him in a different direction. The work that never ended, the errands that piled up, the laundry, the dishes, everything seemed urgent. And yet, looking at her, he felt a pang of guilt that pricked at the edge of his heart. She didn't say anything at first, just looked down at her hands. He could see the small sigh escape her lips, the quiet disappointment that wasn't loud but heavy. It was the kind of disappointment that lingered and pressed against your chest. He felt a lump form in his throat. He knelt down to her level and took her hands in his, roughened from years of work, but tender now in this small moment. "I'll try," he said softly. It was the closest he could get to a promise without feeling like he was lying to her. Her face lit up in a small, bright smile, and he felt a strange warmth spread inside him, something he hadn't felt in a long time. The morning passed in a blur of simple tasks. Breakfast was eaten slowly, between little conversations where she told him stories about her dreams, her favorite games at school, and how she wished they could go to the park more often. He listened, really listened, for the first time in what felt like forever. Her words painted a picture of her world, and he realized how little he knew about it. It wasn't just that he had missed her childhood moments, but that he had missed understanding her, truly knowing her. By mid-morning, they were out the door. The city felt different when he walked with her. Normally, he walked with a purpose, eyes down, mind on the next task, the next responsibility. Today, he slowed down. He noticed the way the sunlight hit the buildings. It's the laughter of children playing in the distance, the smell of fresh bread from the bakery on the corner. She skipped ahead, turning back every few steps to make sure he was following. And he realized he had never noticed how much she loved these little walks. He found himself smiling, genuinely smiling. At her excitement, they stopped at the park, and he watched as she ran to the swings, her laughter ringing out clear and bright. He hesitated, then sat on the bench, unsure if he should join or simply watch. But soon she ran back to him, tugging his hand. "Come on, Daddy. Push me," she cried. He felt awkward at first, his arms stiff as he held her, but then he let go of his worries and pushed her gently. up and down, over and over, until his arms burned and his sides ached. She laughed uncontrollably, and something inside him softened. He remembered a time when he used to swing just as freely, when life hadn't been so heavy with responsibility. For a moment, it felt like they were both children again, sharing a small, perfect world. Lunch was simple, but they made it special. He let her choose the menu, which ended up being her favorite sandwiches. They ate on a bench outside, sharing bites and stories. She told him about a project at school, about how she wanted to build a small garden, and he listened with genuine interest. He even suggested ideas, something he never thought he had the patience for. It wasn't grand or extraordinary, but it was theirs. He felt a strange sense of pride and contentment. By the afternoon, they'd walked to the library, a place she loved, but he rarely visited. She ran ahead, eager to find her favorite books, and he followed, watching her with a mix of awe and quiet sorrow. She had grown so much, and yet he had been absent from many of these moments, too absorbed in the grind of life. He helped her pick out books, listening to her chatter about the stories. And for the first time in a long time, he felt connected, truly connected, to the little person he had vowed to protect and raise. As the sun began to dip lower in the sky, they made their way home, their hands clasped together. He noticed how small she felt against his side, how fragile and precious. The day had been simple, but it had been transformative. He felt a stirring inside, a realization that he had been so focused on survival that he had almost forgotten how to live. And in that moment, walking beside his daughter, he promised himself he would try to change that. One day at a time. The evening came quietly. She curled up beside him on the couch, tired from the day's adventures, her head resting on his shoulder. He held her close, feeling the steady rhythm of her breathing, and for the first time in a long time, he felt a sense of peace. He didn't have all the answers, and life was still complicated. But for this one day, he'd been exactly the father she needed, and perhaps that was enough to start making up for all the moments he had missed. The next morning arrived with a gentle light filtering through the curtains. The single dad awoke with the faint ache in his shoulders and the lingering warmth of his daughter's head resting against him. The previous day had been different, filled with laughter and connection. But today, as he rose, he wondered if he could keep that energy going. Could he truly dedicate himself to her world, even if just for a little while? He poured himself a cup of coffee, the steam curling lazily into the cool morning air, and listened for the tiny footsteps that usually signaled her presence. Sure enough, they came, light and eager. A quiet rhythm he had come to recognize as the heartbeat of their mornings. She appeared at the door, eyes bright, hair messy from sleep, and a small smile tugged at the corners of her mouth. "Daddy, are we really spending today together?" she asked, her voice still soft, but brimming with hope. He knelt down and nodded, trying to match her excitement. "Yes, today is all about us," he said. Her smile widened, and she darted to the kitchen to grab her small backpack, ready for adventure. Even in the simplicity of her movements, there was a sense of purpose, a joy in having him truly present that touched him more than he could explain. Breakfast was light, shared between quiet conversation and laughter. They made toast together, buttering it unevenly, spilling a little jam here and there, and she giggled at the mess. It wasn't perfect, but it was real, and that reality was comforting. For a while, they just ate, letting the world outside fade away. He listened as she told him about her dreams of building a treehouse, about her wish to visit new places, and the small triumphs she had experienced in school. Each word reminded him of how little he had taken the time to understand her world. After breakfast, they decided to go to the small park near their apartment. She held his hand tightly as they walked, chattering about everything and nothing, pointing out birds, flowers, and interesting clouds. He noticed details he had never paid attention to before: the pattern of the paving stones, the way sunlight danced on the leaves, the quiet murmur of life around them. She led him to a corner of the park he had never explored, a hidden spot where the grass was soft and the sunlight fell just right. They sat there for a while, simply being together, sharing silence and smiles. It was a peaceful, almost magical moment, and he felt the tension in his shoulders ease for the first time in months. As the morning stretched on, they played games he hadn't played in years. They ran races, chased each other, and laughed until their sides ached. He felt awkward at first, unsure how to join in her energy. But soon he let go of the worries that usually held him back. He remembered how fun it could be to simply run without purpose, to laugh without reason. And the joy of seeing her face light up was worth every ounce of effort. They climbed on the jungle gym, slid down slides, and swung higher and higher on the swings, the wind whipping through their hair and the world shrinking to just the two of them. By midday, their stomachs growled, and they made their way to a small cafe she loved. He let her pick the menu, and she chose her favorite meal with a confidence that made him smile. They sat by the window, watching people pass by, and he found himself asking questions he had never thought to ask before. What made her laugh at school? Who were her friends? What stories did she love to read? She answered eagerly, happy to share, and he realized how little he had asked about her life beyond the home. The conversation was light, filled with giggles and small moments of connection that felt precious because they had been absent for so long. After lunch, they walked to a small bookstore nearby. She darted between shelves, pulling out books and reading snippets aloud, her eyes sparkling with excitement. He followed her, listening to her voice, watching her enthusiasm, and feeling a quiet pride. He even let her choose a few books to take home, knowing that they would spend hours reading together, exploring new worlds and stories. The bookstore, with its quiet corners and smell of paper, became a place of discovery for both of them, a space where they could share curiosity and wonder. The afternoon drifted into early evening, and they decided to take a small detour through the city streets. She held his hand as they walked slowly, noticing street performers, colorful murals, and tiny cafes tucked into corners. She asked questions about everything, and he answered as best as he could, even admitting when he didn't know. Her laughter at his honesty made him feel lighter, more human, and the walls he had built around himself seemed to crumble a little with every step. For the first time in a long while, he felt like he was not just a provider, but a companion, someone who could share in the small adventures of life as they returned home. The sun was beginning to set, casting warm, golden light over the city. She leaned against him, tired but happy, and he felt the weight of the day settle comfortably in his chest. It had been a simple day, filled with ordinary moments, yet it had transformed something inside him. He realized that being present, really present, didn't require grand gestures or perfect planning. It simply required attention, care, and love. Once home, they made a small dinner together, chopping vegetables and stirring pots, sharing small jokes and playful teasing. The evening felt warm, intimate, and full of life. After dinner, they curled up on the couch with the books they had picked earlier, reading together, his voice soft and steady as she listened. Eyes wide with fascination, she leaned against him, exhausted but content, and he felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The day had shown him the joy of presence, the importance of small moments, and the happiness that could be found in truly seeing his daughter. Before bed, she looked up at him with a small, tired smile. "Can we do this again tomorrow?" she asked softly. Her words were simple, but they carried a weight he could not ignore. He nodded, his own smile forming, and promised, "Yes, we will." She climbed into bed, and he stayed for a while, listening to her soft breathing, feeling the steady rise and fall of her chest. In that quiet moment, he understood that life was not just about surviving, but about sharing, loving, and being present. The day had been a turning point, a step toward something more meaningful, and he felt ready to embrace it, one small, precious moment at a time. The night settled over the city, and he sat by her bed for a few more minutes, reflecting on the day. He knew there would be challenges ahead, days when work and stress would try to pull him back into old patterns. But he also knew now that a simple request, a small act of connection, had opened a door he had almost forgotten existed. He had spent a day as her father in the truest sense, and it had changed him. The bond between them was stronger, and the promise of more days like this filled him with hope and determination. As he finally left the room, Turning off the light and closing the door gently, he felt a quiet resolve settle in his heart. He would continue to be there for her, not just as a parent who provided, but as a father who lived with her, laughed with her, and shared in the small joys of life. And he knew deep down that these days, these moments, would shape both of them in ways that nothing else could. The following morning, the single dad woke earlier than usual, the memory of the previous day still fresh in his mind. He felt a quiet anticipation, a mix of excitement and nervousness, as if today held the promise of something important. His daughter's small footsteps soon echoed through the apartment, light and hurried, and he smiled, remembering how yesterday had changed the way he looked at her and at himself. Today he wanted to give her even more of himself, to make the simple promise he had made feel real in every possible way. They began their morning with breakfast together, the little routines feeling warmer and more alive than ever before. She talked animatedly about a drawing she had made at school, describing every detail with pride, and he listened with rapt attention, asking questions and complimenting her work. The joy in her eyes as he showed genuine interest was almost overwhelming. He realized that he had been missing these moments for so long, lost in responsibilities and chores that seemed never-ending. He wanted to hold on to this new connection, to keep it alive beyond a single day. After breakfast, they set out to explore a nearby park that they hadn't visited before. The air was fresh, carrying the faint scent of flowers and earth after a recent rain. She ran ahead, her laughter bouncing off the trees. He followed at a slower pace, allowing her the freedom to explore while keeping an eye on her. She found a small patch of wildflowers and knelt down, examining them closely. He joined her, crouching beside her and noticing the delicate patterns on each petal. For a moment, they were silent, sharing the simple beauty of the world. Connected not through words, but through presence, they spent the morning wandering through the park, discovering hidden corners and small streams where she dipped her fingers in the cool water. She asked him questions about everything she saw, the shapes of clouds, the movement of birds, even the tiny insects crawling through the grass. He answered as best as he could, sometimes admitting when he didn't know, and each time she nodded, satisfied with his honesty. Her curiosity was endless, and he found himself learning alongside her, seeing the world through her eyes, and appreciating the wonder in things he had long taken for granted. Lunchtime brought them to a small cafe tucked into a quiet street. She chose their meals with care, explaining why she liked certain foods, and he listened, genuinely interested. They shared bites of their food, talked about stories from school, and laughed over little jokes that only they seemed to understand. The simple act of sharing a meal became a moment of intimacy, a bridge between their worlds, and he felt a deep sense of fulfillment that he hadn't known before. It was in these small, ordinary moments that he realized how much had been missing in their relationship. In the afternoon, they decided to visit a small museum she'd been curious about. The exhibits were colorful and interactive, and she darted from one display to another, her eyes wide with wonder. He followed, letting her lead, and for the first time, he didn't feel the usual pressure of schedules or responsibilities. He listened as she explained what she saw, asked questions, and shared her thoughts freely. Her enthusiasm was infectious, and he found himself genuinely excited about things he would have otherwise overlooked. Each exhibit became an opportunity to connect, to share knowledge, and to explore together. They took breaks between exhibits, sitting on benches and talking about their favorite parts. She asked him about his childhood, and he shared stories he had long kept buried, about games he used to play, friends he had, and dreams he once held. She listened intently, her eyes shining, and he realized how powerful it was to simply open up, to let her see him as a person beyond the role of a father. In turn, she shared her own hopes and fears, her small insecurities, and the things that made her happiest. They were not just sharing experiences, they were sharing themselves, and the bond between them deepened with every passing hour as the day wore on. They found themselves outside in a quiet courtyard, the sun warm on their faces. She suggested they sit and draw together, and he agreed, feeling a bit awkward at first, but willing to try. They sketched flowers, trees, and small imaginary worlds. laughing at each other's attempts and marveling at the creativity that flowed from her hands. In those moments, he felt a sense of freedom he hadn't known in years, a release from the constant weight of adult responsibilities. The joy of creating something together, of simply being present, was almost intoxicating. Later, they wandered through a small market, the colorful stalls full of sights and smells that delighted her senses. She sampled fruits, pointed out interesting trinkets, and asked him about the people selling goods. He answered patiently, sharing bits of knowledge and stories he knew, and she listened, fascinated by the world around her. Her curiosity reminded him of the importance of noticing details, slowing down to truly see life rather than just rushing through it. It was a lesson he was learning from her, and he was grateful for it. As the afternoon turned to evening, they made their way home slowly, holding hands and talking about the day. She was tired, but her energy and excitement remained, and he felt a quiet pride in the way she navigated the world with such curiosity and joy. He reflected on how much he had learned from simply being with her, listening to her, and sharing in her experiences. The day had been full, rich with moments of connection, laughter, and discovery, and he knew it was shaping both of them in ways that would last. Back at home, they prepared a simple dinner together, chopping vegetables, stirring sauces, and sharing small jokes. The kitchen was warm with light and laughter, a small sanctuary from the outside world. They ate together, savoring the meal, and continued to talk, sharing stories and ideas. He noticed how much more relaxed he felt, how much lighter the weight of his worries seemed when he was fully engaged in her world. The day had reminded him that life was not just about obligations, but about the connections we nurture and the love we share. After dinner, they settled on the couch with the books they had brought from the museum and library. He read aloud, and she listened with rapt attention, occasionally interrupting to ask questions or make observations. Her curiosity and intelligence amazed him, and he felt a growing respect for the person she was becoming. She leaned against him, tired but content, and he held her close, feeling the steady rhythm of her breathing and the warmth of her small body. It was a quiet, intimate moment, full of love and understanding, and he cherished it deeply. Before bed, she turned to him with a small, tired smile. "Can we do something like this every day?" she asked softly. Her words were simple, but the meaning behind them struck him profoundly. He nodded, his own smile forming as he promised, "Yes, we can." She climbed into bed, and he stayed for a while, reflecting on the day and the changes it had brought. He understood that these moments, these shared experiences, were the true foundation of their relationship. They were more important than any work, any errand, any distraction that life might throw at them. The night grew quiet, and he finally left her room, closing the door gently behind him. He felt a deep sense of satisfaction and hope, knowing that the bond between them had grown stronger, that he had begun to truly live as her father, not just in title but in presence and action. He knew that challenges would come, days when stress and responsibility threatened to pull him back into old patterns, but he also knew now that the simple act of being present could transform their lives. The day had been a revelation, a reminder that love and attention were the most powerful gifts he could give, and he was determined to continue giving them. One moment at a time, the next morning dawned with a soft glow, and the single dad woke, feeling the quiet anticipation of another day to share with his daughter. The previous days had been transformative, yet today felt different. He sensed that something small could shift their lives in ways he hadn't imagined. His daughter's little footsteps soon echoed down the hall, full of energy and purpose, and he smiled to himself. Knowing she was ready for another adventure, they began with a simple breakfast, sharing toast and fruit, her laughter filling the kitchen as she recounted a story from school. He listened carefully, genuinely interested, and she noticed the attention he gave her. Her eyes sparkled with delight, and he realized how powerful it was to simply be present, to truly care about the little details of her life. She had begun to expect his involvement, and he wanted to rise to that expectation. Knowing that these small moments were shaping her understanding of love and support, after breakfast, she tugged at his hand and suggested they visit a small lake nearby. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of water and earth, and the trees around the path swayed gently in the morning breeze. She skipped ahead, pointing out birds and flowers, and he followed, noticing the beauty he had often overlooked. They walked together, talking and laughing, the conversation flowing naturally. She asked about his childhood dreams, and he shared stories he had never told anyone before, about games he used to play, friends he cherished, and moments of joy that had long faded from his memory. At the lake, they found a quiet spot on the shore and sat down. She began skipping stones, giggling each time one landed just right on the water. He joined in, attempting to mimic her throws, and they laughed together when the stones splashed in unexpected ways. The simplicity of the activity made him realize that joy didn't need to be complicated, was found in shared moments, laughter, and the beauty of the world around them. He felt a deep connection with her, stronger than he had ever felt before. As the morning turned into afternoon, they decided to have a small picnic by the lake. She had packed a few snacks, insisting on sharing them, and he marveled at her thoughtfulness. They ate together, enjoying the quiet sounds of the water and the rustling leaves. Between bites, she asked him questions about life, about how to be brave and kind, about how to handle challenges. He answered as honestly as he could, and she listened with wide-eyed curiosity. Her trust in him, her willingness to share and inquire, made him realize the immense responsibility and privilege of being present in her life. After their meal, they wandered along a trail that led through the woods surrounding the lake. She ran ahead, exploring every nook and cranny, and he followed, observing her energy and determination. She discovered a fallen log and invited him to cross it with her. He hesitated at first, worried about balance and safety. But then he saw her encouraging smile and realized that this was another opportunity to connect, to be a part of her adventures. They navigated the log together, laughing when they wobbled and cheering each other on. The experience became a metaphor, he realized, for life itself, navigating challenges with support, trust, and love. By late afternoon, they found a small clearing and decided to rest. She leaned against him, her small frame warm against his side, and he felt a quiet sense of contentment. She began to speak softly, almost hesitantly, about how much she appreciated the days they had spent together. Her words were simple, but filled with meaning, and he felt a pang of emotion. Realizing how much these shared experiences had affected her, she looked up at him with wide, earnest eyes and asked, "Daddy, can we do this more often? Can we always have days like this?" Her request was small, almost casual in its wording, yet it carried a weight that struck him deeply. He looked down at her, the innocence and hope in her eyes, and felt a surge of emotion he couldn't ignore. The simplicity of her words, the pure desire to spend time together, had opened his eyes to what truly mattered. He realized that in his focus on work, bills, and survival, he had overlooked the most important thing, being present for the person who needed him most. He took a deep breath and held her hands, feeling their warmth and smallness. "Yes," he said softly, "we will have more days like this. I promise." She smiled, the kind of smile that could light up the darkest corners of a room, and hugged him tightly. In that embrace, he felt a profound shift, a recognition that life was not about what he did for her materially, but about the moments, the attention, and the love he shared. Her simple request had reminded him of what it meant to truly be a father. The rest of the afternoon was spent in a mixture of play, conversation, and quiet reflection. They explored the woods, found interesting stones and leaves, and shared stories about imaginary worlds. She asked him about the things he liked to do as a child, and he told her about games, adventures, and dreams that had long been buried under the weight of adult life. She listened intently, absorbing every word, and in turn, shared her own small hopes and dreams, the things that mattered to her most. The day was not extraordinary in events, but it was extraordinary in the connection they built, the understanding that passed between them, and the love that grew stronger with every shared moment as evening approached. They made their way home slowly, hand in hand, both tired but happy. The setting sun cast a warm glow over the city, and he noticed how beautiful the world looked when seen through her eyes. The challenges and stresses of life felt distant, replaced by a quiet sense of purpose and fulfillment. He understood that these moments were the foundation of their relationship, the memories that would shape them both for years to come, back at home. They prepared a simple dinner together, laughing over small mistakes and sharing playful teasing. The kitchen was warm, filled with light and the aroma of food. And they talked about the day, what they had discovered, and what they hoped to do next. He felt a deep satisfaction in her happiness, knowing that his presence had made a real difference. It was not about grand gestures or elaborate plans, but about being there, fully and wholeheartedly. After dinner, they settled on the couch with books and sketches, sharing quiet moments of reading and drawing. She leaned against him, exhausted but content, and he felt a profound sense of fulfillment. He reflected on how much had changed in just a few days, the way he looked at life, at his responsibilities, and at his role as a father. Her small request had sparked something deep within him, a desire to be more present, more loving, and more engaged in the simple, everyday moments that truly mattered. Before bed, she looked up at him with a soft, tired smile. "Daddy, thank you for today," she whispered. "It was the best day ever." He hugged her gently, feeling the warmth of her small body against his, and whispered back, "Thank you for reminding me what's really important." She climbed into bed, and he stayed for a while, watching her breathe softly, feeling the steady rhythm of her presence. In that quiet, intimate moment, he understood that life was about these small, meaningful experiences, the shared laughter, the gentle guidance, and the love that flowed freely between them. The night settled over the apartment, and he finally left her room, closing the door with care. He felt a renewed sense of purpose, knowing that her simple request had changed the way he viewed life and fatherhood. He had learned that being present, truly present, was the most valuable gift he could give. The bond between them had grown stronger, and he was determined to continue nurturing it, one small, precious moment at a time. The day had been a turning point, a reminder that love, attention, and shared experiences were more powerful than anything else. And he felt ready to embrace this new chapter with hope, commitment, and an open heart. The next morning, the single dad woke with a quiet excitement, a feeling he hadn't known in years. The days spent with his daughter had already begun to change him, shaping the way he thought about life, love, and the importance of presence. Today felt like a continuation of something meaningful, something that would strengthen the bond between them even further. He stretched and listened for her familiar footsteps, a rhythm that had become the heartbeat of his days, and smiled as they approached the bedroom door. She appeared with a small backpack, her hair tousled from sleep and her eyes bright with anticipation. "Daddy, can we go on another adventure today?" she asked eagerly. He nodded, feeling a warmth spread through him, and replied, "Of course. Today is all about us." The simplicity of her request and the trust behind it reminded him once again how small moments could carry so much significance. She smiled widely, and together they began their morning routine. Breakfast filled with laughter and conversation, sharing stories, and planning the day ahead. After breakfast, they decided to explore a nearby nature trail that wound through a small forest. The air was crisp and clean, carrying the faint scent of pine and earth. She ran ahead, full of energy, and he followed at a slower pace, savoring the opportunity to observe her curiosity. She pointed out birds, insects, and unique plants, asking questions about each one. He answered patiently, sometimes admitting when he didn't know. And together, they discovered small wonders in the world around them. He felt a deep sense of connection, realizing that these moments of shared discovery were building a foundation of trust and understanding that words alone could not create. They found a quiet clearing near a stream and sat down to rest. She kicked off her shoes and waded into the shallow water, giggling as the cool liquid splashed around her feet. He joined her, rolling up his pants and stepping in cautiously at first, then laughing as the water reached his ankles. They skipped stones together, laughed at the ripples, and watched as the sunlight danced on the surface. The simple pleasure of being together, completely immersed in the moment, filled him with a joy he hadn't felt in years. It was in these ordinary experiences that life felt extraordinary. As the morning passed, they continued along the trail, discovering hidden paths and small clearings filled with wildflowers. She asked about his favorite childhood memories, and he shared stories of games, adventures, and dreams that had been long forgotten. She listened intently, her eyes wide with fascination, and he felt a sense of pride and fulfillment. In turn, she shared her own dreams and wishes, her voice filled with hope and innocence. He realized that these exchanges were more than conversation. They were a way of connecting, of understanding each other on a deeper level. They paused for lunch on a large rock overlooking the stream. She shared her snacks and he offered small bites of his food, and they talked about the future, about places they wanted to explore and things they wanted to try. She asked questions about life, about courage, kindness, and how to make good choices. He answered honestly, drawing from his own experiences, and she absorbed every word with trust and curiosity. He felt the weight of responsibility not as a burden, but as a privilege, knowing that his guidance mattered deeply to her. In the afternoon, they wandered into a small meadow where wildflowers swayed in the breeze. She ran freely, twirling and laughing, and he watched, feeling a mix of admiration and love. He joined in, chasing her through the flowers, laughing when they both stumbled and fell onto the soft grass. The laughter echoed through the meadow. He felt a sense of freedom and release from the pressures that had weighed on him for so long. The simple act of playing together, of sharing pure joy, was more powerful than any accomplishment or task he had focused on in his adult life. As the sun began to lower in the sky, casting a golden glow over the landscape, they found a quiet spot to rest. She leaned against him, tired but happy, and he held her close, feeling the steady rhythm of her breathing. She asked him softly, "Daddy, can we have more days like this always?" Her words were simple, yet profound, a reminder of what truly mattered. He looked down at her, seeing the trust and love in her eyes, and felt a deep resolve. "Yes," he whispered, "we will have many more days like this. I promise." Her smile brightened his heart, and he realized that this small request had transformed him, guiding him to understand the true meaning of fatherhood. The walk home was slow and quiet, filled with occasional chatter about the things they had seen and done. She held his hand tightly, and he noticed how small and precious it felt. He reflected on the past days, the growth in their relationship, and the lessons he had learned about presence, attention, and love. He understood that being a father was not just about providing, but about sharing life, experiences, and emotions. The days they spent together were shaping both of them, creating memories and a bond that would last a lifetime. Back at home, they prepared a simple dinner together. She chopped vegetables carefully, asking for guidance, and he helped her, enjoying the shared activity. The kitchen was warm with light and laughter, and he noticed how much joy these ordinary tasks could bring when done together. They ate side by side, talking about their day, recounting funny moments, and planning for future adventures. The sense of fulfillment he felt was profound, rooted not in achievement, but in connection and love. After dinner, they settled on the couch with books and art supplies. He read stories aloud, and she listened, occasionally asking questions or making observations. Then they drew pictures together, sharing ideas and laughter, creating small works of art that reflected their experiences and imagination. She leaned against him, tired but content, and he held her, feeling the warmth and love that flowed naturally between them. These quiet, intimate moments reinforced the bond they had built, a connection that was deepening with each shared experience. As bedtime approached, she climbed into bed, and he stayed for a while. Watching her peaceful sleep, he reflected on the journey they had taken together, the small steps, shared moments, and the profound lessons learned. He realized that life was not about rushing, about constant work, or about checking off tasks. It was about being present, truly present, for the people who mattered most. The small request she had made at the beginning of their days had sparked a transformation in him, reminding him of the value of love, attention. In shared experiences, he finally left her room, closing the door gently behind him. The apartment was quiet, but he felt a sense of warmth and hope that filled every corner. He knew that challenges would come, days when responsibilities would press down. But he also knew that the bond they had nurtured would sustain them. He had learned that fatherhood was a journey, one that required patience, presence, and a willingness to embrace the small, meaningful moments that truly mattered. The day had been a culmination of love, connection, and understanding. And he felt ready to continue this journey, committed to being the father his daughter deserved. The nights and days ahead held promise, adventure, and countless moments of joy. And he was prepared to embrace them, one precious moment at a time. Their lives had changed, not because of grand gestures or dramatic events, but because of the quiet power of love, presence, and a small request that had transformed everything.